if I were to try one of those instruments, you'd see like, well, there are other people that are considerably upgraded from me. I can't do it because I've never tried it and I don't have that ability. Give me a motor, something to fix, that's mine. Jerry?
It just seems like what they're saying here, that there was a lot of knowledge that was there before the flood, and a lot of that was lost. A lot of that was lost in the flood. They had to start over, but I know they found some ancient artifacts, that show there was a lot of knowledge that we don't know how they did things, even after the flood. But it seems like they're already doing iron and bronze and stuff after 500-600 years, and then they didn't have the load of DNA problems, so they could maybe think better than we, I don't know, maybe than we can now. And they lived longer, so they had time to, some people, they start getting good at something, then they die. If you live 500 years, you have more time to get better at something.
Or pass on the trade.
Yeah.
Sure. All right, yeah. When you look at some, we call them third world countries, or some areas of the world, yet today, they've got a cow pulling a stick, and that's their way of tilling the soil. Yet, in places. And that's the way it is. Here, they had bronze. They had iron to make implements with. And see, they're advancing along. And this, as Jerry brought out here, that's how it is, bronze and iron. And I'm not quite sure what this last of verse 22 is doing here, but it says, and the sister of Tubal-Cain was Naamah. Maybe she was exceptionally pretty, or somehow could be a natural leader. I don't know, it doesn't say. But there she is. Okay, now we go to verse 23 and 4. This is interesting. Lamech said to his wives. Now, fellas, I don't expect that you will speak to your wife, or nobody's wives, but wife, in the same fashion. But this is what he had to say to them. Edda and Zillah, listen to my voice, you wives of Lamech. Give heed to my speech, for I have killed a man for wounding me, and a boy for striking me. If Cain is avenged sevenfold, then Lamech 77-fold. Well, first of all, I hope you guys don't have to explain to your wife why you killed somebody. And to be this formal, and this is also put in prose. It's like a poem, a special. This is not the way they would talk, is what I'm saying. But still, it's put that way here for special note. So what do we have? All right, Lamech has two wives, and he very formally says, listen to me, my wives. Listen closely, give heed. I killed a man in self-defense. He struck me, and in defending myself, I killed him. I don't know, and I'm putting it that way, I don't know if he's trying to excuse something, because he does bring up an ancestor, Cain, but and Cain had no excuse, but nonetheless, I was attacked, and so I defended myself, and I killed this young fella. And note, if Cain was protected, this avenged, he was protected sevenfold. If anybody were to kill Cain, why, it'd be 7 times worse for that one who did this to Cain. So here it says, since I am innocent, then it's 77-fold that God will protect me. Now that's the way I'm reading this little blurb that it's put in here. Ronnie?
Is there not two people they killed, the man and the boy?
No, they emphasize things a lot by just stating it twice. We do the same thing. Yeah. Luke?
The law that Noah gets after he gets off the ark is not in effect yet, too, in that when somebody kills somebody, by then man's blood, his blood be required. That law hasn't come into effect yet, so it's interesting. This is his rationale and reasoning, I guess, in the absence. There must be some law that they had, but
Yeah, there were a lot of things they had to go by to be a civilization of any sort by way of rules. We have to have rules or we just don't get along at all without rules. You ever see children play a game and nobody knows the rules? It ends up in just arguing and somebody finally grabs their ball and goes home. All right. So that's as we're looking at it here. So society is getting along, bronze and iron. We have musicians. We have raiser of livestock, the keeper of domesticated animals. That's the only way you can put livestock. And so we have this self-defense thing. So time has come on, and we've gotten this far. Now we have verses 25 and 6, we go back to Adam. Adam had relations with his wife again, and she gave birth to a son and named him Seth. For she said, God has appointed me another offspring in place of Abel, for Cain killed him. So, we're switching now to the generations of Adam. And now these are the ones that will be in the lineage of Jesus Christ. The holy people is another term that's often given to them. This is important because these were the ones that God took special note of to bring about salvation to the world. Now, what we have, sin happened just in the way it's written. Sin, you'd read through it and it looked like sin just happened, and it's just getting a good foothold. Well, basically that is, though it's a lot of years, that is what's going on. Sin is really taking root. And here, people are killing each other. And even having to do it to stay alive yourself. So you see, this is I'd call it a downward spiral, but it's almost like we're not going around and around, we're just going downhill fast with this, and that's what will happen pretty soon. Now this Jerry brought out here about mankind, and okay, we've got bronze, and we have iron, and we're making things out of them. And then the flood happens, and what were they doing then after the flood? What did they build the Tower of Babel with? Mud bricks. Is that an advancement in technology? Mud bricks. No. All right. So here's what we have. So Adam and Eve had Seth, and he's the well, let's see. For she said, Eve said, God has appointed me another offspring in place of Abel, because Cain killed him. To Seth To him also a son was born, and he called his name Enosh. Okay, we've got a lineage started. Now, we've got a good family. Adam, now, I know Adam and Eve sinned, but he is in Jesus Christ's lineage, so he's a good guy. And now we have Seth. He's a good guy. And we have Enosh. He's still in this lineage. He's a good guy. So since we have this reset, we're going back and we're starting again because Abel was killed by Cain. So we start again. So we need to do something to stay on track. You find it that way with your life? You have to keep, like, just one example, it's a good one. Right here, once a week, we need to be reset, as it were. And start again, remember, and so on. Well, they had to do something. So, what does the very last of chapter 4 say? Then men began to call upon the name of the Lord. They had to do something magnificent to stay on track. They realized, oh, see what sin has done. Whoa. So what are we going to do? You know, something really radical. Let's let God help us. You think they're so far away that they can't remember what Adam had been telling them about the Garden of Eden? Maybe Eve was telling them about the housekeeping chores in the Garden of Eden. This is no trick at all. And everything was so nice, and God was with us. And now look where we are. Why don't we have a revival? Why don't we start again? Try harder. So it looks like from what we're seeing and what we will see in the ensuing bit, we're two things. One, they're going to try. They really are. It looks like they're going to try. Because they did begin to call on the name of the Lord. And two, they're going to fail miserably. Satan didn't give up. But neither did God. So when God hits the reset button next time, he wipes it clean, with the exception of 8 souls, and starts over. That's how bad it had gotten. But for now, give men credit for this. Then men began to call upon the name of the Lord. And I think the way that is put is call by the name of the Lord. And not like today, you so often hear the name of the Lord, but it isn't pleasant the way they're using it. So by the name of the Lord, let's try this, let's do this. And I think they did have, they stirred themselves up to do more in I'll use a word that some people think is a bad word, but it's an excellent word. It's a good word. Religion. It's a good word. Used by good people. It's a great word. But there are those who don't like it because it condemns them and their action. But I'll say that they stirred themselves up and to do more than perhaps that generation, those that were alive then, had done. Remember that we're up to, let's see, about the year, 700, 800, long in there, anyway, since creation. And there have been people getting born along the way. There are quite a few people now. And so they can see that, things could be better. Things could just be a lot better. And so from the time that the way things were done at the first until the way they're done now, do we still have the same problem? The new generation. Can you believe that the younger ones, the stupid stuff they're doing? That's the refrain of older people throughout history. The way we did it is better. These kids, they don't know anything. Well, best thing to do then is teach them. But what do you think, Dan? You teach them. Yeah.
If they don't think they need to know anything, just ask Siri. I've never asked Siri a thing in my life.
Haven't you? Man, I gave up this morning and I asked Siri, what's the definition of religion? And Siri did good. It's worshiping God. Yeah. So they began to call on the name of the Lord. And worshipers of God began to distinguish themselves. So we come down to, as you look into two groups now, we have those that we'll say they were impious and irreligious. And they are called sons of men. Sons of men. Natural man. Earthly, demonic, natural. And there were those that adhered to God. They were calling on the name of the Lord, and they were declaring God. And they called themselves sons of God, not sons of men. So, we have the distinction here between the professors and the profane. You want to put a list to each of them? Professing God and profaning God. And there's... And so shall it ever be till God comes again. Jesus comes again and puts an end to it. But for here, right then, they're having that to do. Yes, Bruce.
So there's this terminology we call entropy. It takes from a higher state to a more chaotic state. When we start off, we're in direct relationship to God. And as you're saying, it's more and more people think they don't need God. They come around, and then there's fewer and fewer eventually that are professing God. And of course, that leads us to the flood and the 8 souls that are saved. Unfortunately, we're seeing that again. And I'm not sure if we can turn it around.
Is that the second law of thermodynamics?
Yes.
Things progress from a higher state to a lower, and despite man's best efforts, Satan sees to it that it's a law. All right. So we have that. Men begin to call on the name of the Lord. Chapter 5. The very first verse gives us the chapter title. This is the book of the generations of Adam. There we have it. That's chapter 5. Now, we're not going to just let that be that for chapter 5, but nonetheless, with that thought in mind, this is the generations, the book of the generations of Adam. Now, in saying that, we're on the list of those men who began to call upon the name of the Lord. And through all of this, this list goes clear down, and he's clear down to Methuselah, and then on to one other person. By the time we get to the end of the chapter, we're down to Noah. And Methuselah, I mentioned him because he died in the year of the flood. So probably didn't have a heart attack unless he was scared to death when Noah's words began to come true. Anyway, for now, The generations of Adam. In the day when God created man, he made him, man, in the likeness of God. Note that. He created them male and female, and he blessed them and named them man. What's the other name for man? Adam. So if you called the original guy, if you called him Adam, you were saying man. Okay. He blessed them and named them man in the day that they were created. So man in this sense here is generic, man and woman. Man, mankind, man. But Adam as the guy man. Okay, and then it goes verse 3. Let's see, if there's anything else I want to say. Yeah, before we get to verse 3, in the first couple of verses, we have a rehearsal of the creation of man. And we want to reacquaint ourselves with our very, very roots physically, and in wanting to call on the name of the Lord again, spiritually also. So man was created by God. So man is not his own maker, and therefore he's not his own master. We had a good example of that with the marionette. The marionette didn't make itself. Somebody else made it, so the marionette is not its own master. No, sir. We are to recognize God, and that's a part of creation. There was a day that he's saying here in which God created man. So we're saying man is not from eternity. Jesus is from eternity. We aren't. We are created beings. Angels aren't from eternity. How far back they go, I don't know, but they're created. All right, and God, this is important. God made man in God's own image. God is righteous. God is holy. And I think because of this, God is happy. He made man that way. That's part of how it happened, how it was done. Now, God created them, male and female. Man has forgotten that. Crazy, isn't it crazy? Okay, male and female. This will preserve the race, and will cause the increase of mankind. And let's see. Oh, I wrote this down. Adam and Eve were both made immediately by the hand of God, both made in God's likeness, and therefore between the sexes there is not that inequality which some imagine. There is simply a different role for each to fill, man and woman. And then it says here that God blessed them. God bless them. It's natural for a parent to want to bless their children. And the scripture says it's a good thing for a parent to give to the children. And we're talking about upon passing. It's a good thing for the parents to have laid in store for the children than to have something to build on. All right. We call that a will. And that's the way that works. And he called their name Adam. Adam means earth. And Josephus said that's red earth. I don't know if there's any significance to that. All right. So God gave man his name. And Adam named the rest of the creatures, by the way. Yes? Did I say something wrong? So God gave him his name. Adam realized, all right, I've been named. Now, there are all these other creatures out here. And so he was set about, he named all the creatures. You know, it's a good thing God gave us our name. If we were allowed to give us ourselves a name or a title, well, we could get carried away with some adjectives that were like, whoa, Grand Imperial Poobah, Worshipful Master, Chief Cook and Bottle Washer. We'd come up with something that would put us above everyone and everything else. So God named us. We are named man. We are named earth. We are named red. Okay, but we got that from God. So it's good. And he gave this name to both the man and to the woman. So we can say the woman is of the earthy, just like the man. All right. In verse 3, when Adam had lived 130 years, he became the father of a son in his own likeness, according to his image, and named him Seth. So the birth of his son Seth, 130th year of Adam's life. Now that includes whatever time he spent in the garden. This is total from the day he was created until the time Seth was born, 130 years. And now I have to guess at this because there's no numbers here, but I'll say that the murder of Abel had very possibly occurred not too long before this. And that's why we want another child. So many other sons and daughters were born, but right now, here we have Seth being born. Now, well, okay. Adam begat, had a son in Adam's own likeness. God had a son in his likeness, in God's likeness. That was Adam, and that was perfect. Now we have Adam, who's become imperfect because of sin, had a son. So what God passed on to his son was one thing. What Adam had to pass on was quite something else. So it's just a different deal here. The bloodline of God himself is different, I'll say different than the bloodline of fallen man. And what we pass on to our children is a bunch different than what God gave the first man because of sin. I don't say, and I won't say, that Adam passed sin on. And therefore, every time you have a child, you're passing sin on. No. The scripture explicitly states that we sin for ourselves. Now, death has been passed on because we sin for ourselves. And I have to put it that way, and I'm glad to, because, hey, we've got a lot of little babies in the church here. Were they born sinful? No. You have to do it for yourself. Yeah. No, yours wasn't either, Jason. What?
Quite a few years ago, I was having a Bible study with a Methodist preacher, and we got on the subject of original sin. And I just looked at him and I said, "You don't actually believe that, really?" He says, "Well, have you ever seen little kids do things they're not supposed to do? Little babies not doing something that you tell them not to do?" And that's where it leads. It's just ridiculous. You know, just the idea of it is ridiculous.
No, sin is a part of the will, and it's I did it because I wanted to, and I knew it was wrong. A whole different ballgame. Well, I just did run out of time too. So we'll go on with chapter 5, verse 4, Lord willing, next Lord's Day. Thank you so much for your attention. I appreciate it.